holding this very important hearing. Thank you to our panel today. Dr. Schmidt is a GSB grad. It's nice to see you here. I didn't have the pleasure of having you in class, but very good to see you here. I want to start on the talent side. So I've run a startup before in Silicon Valley, trying to find talent and the talent shortage and competing with an Alphabet as a little itty bitty startup and trying to compete with all that can be offered is very challenging, and it shows you just the scope of the problem. And so I want to echo a lot of the comments around visa reform in particular. I think there is kind of two ways to look at it. There's the homegrown talent piece, which we all agree we need to invest even more dollars in STEM. There seems to be bipartisan support for that, so chop chop, let's go. And then the second piece, which I just think is insane, which is we train people, we bring them in, we give them access to our research universities, we spend all kinds of money training them, and then we throw them out of the country, which I just think is nuts. I don't know how you survive no business would survive that way if that's how they operated. I don't know why we think that's a good practice here. But it's not. And so I want to start with Dr. Schmidt with this question. Put your business hat back on for a second. When you're dealing with these shortages, what decisions would you make as a company with respect to where to locate talent and hires, given the tightness of the labor market here?
So the good news is that the system that we're talking about in the United States is responding to what's going on. Mm-hmm. Computer science has become the #1 major in most of the leading undergraduate universities, which is a shock to me because when I went to college, it didn't exist. The graduate programs around AI have thousands of applications. These are within the universities for 50 slots or 100 slots. Mm-hmm. So we know that the engine is producing the labor, right? And that's a great American story.
Right.
Furthermore, there's plenty of money for AI-based startups to hire these people, even at inflated salaries. So I think the system is gearing up for success.
Great to hear. And then staying with you, you talked about how the AI machine learning race is a global one, totally agree. I've been of the perspective for a while, we need a multidisciplinary approach and standard setting as we deal with some interesting ethical dilemmas and tech dilemmas and things like that. Structurally, how would you go about solving sort of the standard setting challenge to make sure that as these technologies develop, a China, for example, is playing by a set of rules that are informed by sort of Western liberal democracies, if you will?
I doubt China is going to want to follow our rules about surveillance and privacy and so forth.
Yeah.
There are probably areas where we can collaborate in standards. The most obvious one is AI safety. Let's imagine that an AI system begins to do something that is not expected. That's not in anyone's interest. Mm-hmm. And so having a discussion about that, especially in a military context, is probably very important.
Yeah, so that was actually going to be my next question. So, and don't comment specifically on this project, but Project Maven, which at one point Google was involved in and had some controversy inside Google. Palantir may or may not be doing it, if you listen to their CEO's comments. Talk about, on the national security front, how important it is to lead on AI and machine learning with respect to kinetic warfare, because there's clearly going to be a blending of those technologies.
So I'll tell you what I've told the Department of Defense. AI today started as largely a vision revolution, and computers today have better vision than humans. They see deeper, they see more accurately, they don't make those mistakes. So most of the initial use of AI is going to be in vision related, which is why in the commercial sector, the biggest impact will be in healthcare. And we'll revolutionize healthcare, right, which is an amazing story. In the military, much of the military in peacetime is spending its time watching things, intelligence and so forth and so on. And you have expertly trained soldiers, airmen, and so forth, who are sitting there watching screens all day, bored as they could possibly be. Right. We can fix that.
Yeah. And, you know, I think one of the challenges, or I guess one thing I want to encourage the body on is if we stop, right, if we just say, hey, we are not going to do the Project Mavens of the world, surely China will. And if we cede the ground on that type of technology, I think we're putting our national security at risk. And I think that's something we all agree we shouldn't be doing. So with that, I yield back.
Thank you very much. Mr. Perlmutter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to our panelists. Dr. Schmidt, I don't know if you remember, a number of years you came and spoke to some of us in the Library of Congress. And your topic was similar to today's, just generally, how do we maintain this such an effective both educational and commercial system. And so over the last 10, 12 years, and you've used the racing and the running metaphor, I mean, have we been losing ground or falling behind in the race faster and faster, or how would you describe it? Because when we talk about a race, there's usually a